Elder Dragon low, might get the steal as well. Maple dives in, he wants to avoid it. Dragon steals it away as a voidless.
And it's Crown now.
Oh, good stuff. A beautiful flash kick, ulti all in, and Sven gets the next one. And Kobe can't do anything. Another arcane ship. Pop goes the support. That's one pro kill for Uzi.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Trevor QuickShot Henry, joined tonight by Jake Spawn Tiberi and Isaac Azael Cummings Bentley here in the Bill Graham Civic Auditorium. Names for another edition of Worlds tonight. Gentlemen, it's been a long day, but was it fun?
Yeah, it certainly was. I mean, those last couple of games had me sweating, actually, but another day over of Worlds and more surprises to come.
Got an NA win, so it's always good.
Definitely, and there you can see the results. We got our first look at Group B and the last 4 teams to make their debut here in San Francisco. TSM there took down Samsung Galaxy, but before we get to that, it started with a much-anticipated clash between reigning world champions SK Telecom and North America's Cloud9, and it was messy.
Yeah, it certainly was, and I mean, SKT here came out with a vengeance, starting Bengi. Faker was absolutely destroying Jensen in that mid lane. And I think that we're starting to see SKT really ramp up after what was a pretty quiet split for them.
Pretty disrespectful draft, losing lanes across the board, and mistakes as well, don't you think, Azael?
Yeah, this game was over very early. Faker just completely took over Jensen, drafted a losing lane, played poorly in it, and then got completely decimated.
Well, Cloud9 absolutely punished SK Telecom, looking very, very strong. Of course, it's the first game, defending world champions. This is a bit painful to watch. I'm glad the B-roll is finally over. SKT pick up the win. Moving on, we take a look at Flash Wolves versus IMA. This is the 3rd seed from China. They stayed strong, and they came back from a very rough early game, much like their Game 5 victory to make it to Worlds.
Yeah, exactly right. And much like that game, it was a lot of their jungler avoidless setting up the rest of the team to be able to take over the team fighting portion of that game. Flash Wolves, they did have the advantage, but they weren't able to close it out. And when the game gets a little bit scrappy, a little bit messy, you are definitely in IMA territory.
Yeah, definitely was indeed. We also saw Group Z takes the rift once again. TSM made a statement with an extremely dominant win, and this was the team that really fans were expecting yesterday.
Yeah, and this is really what they needed to get their confidence back. Bjergsen and Svenskeren especially went on a rampage this game, working so well together. Bjergsen getting an early solo kill on Crown, and Svenskeren in particular, even their loss yesterday, looked amazing on Lee Sin, and today he stepped it up to another level.
Yeah, it's so fun when a great jungler locks in Lee Sin, and his mid laner is willing to give him that support, and that's exactly what happened in this game. Even Haunter joined the party as the game progressed, and if TSM continues to play at this level, there is a reason that North American fans have hope.
Yeah, well, day 1 was not the level they were expecting. Day 2 is what they want more of. But talking about levels, we closed out the day with Edward Gaming going up against AHQ Esports Club. It was the #1 LPL squad. They tried to redeem themselves from yesterday's upset. And I don't know, I think they won the game in the end, but it wasn't as convincing as I was expecting.
They won the game, but they look vulnerable. They lost yesterday, and they looked very beatable today. It was more about AHQ's mistakes in the late game to me than it was EDG's fantastic play, as AHQ took a horrible fight after Elder Dragon had been taken by EDG and cost themselves the game.
But the Elder Dragon call was good, so you are seeing some of that leadership and experience coming out of Clearlove, but definitely agree, this is a team that after an undefeated split definitely looks wounded.
Yeah, beyond a shadow of a doubt. EDG, though, go 1-1. Bouncing back. We didn't cover all of the games, but as you look at the standings, you'll notice that, of course, INTZ Esports dropped the game. So take a look at that. 1-1 across the board in Group C. Any other surprises for you, Azael?
I think besides that, IMA taking a win here was a surprise for me, especially in the way that they did. It was a pretty messy game.
Yeah, I think that the only thing I would point out is that RNG is still undefeated down in Group D. Coming up against Samsung tomorrow, that's going to be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, definitely. Talking about tomorrow, Group A will have their time on the Rift when CLG goes up against Albus, Nox, Luna. Then it is Rocks Tigers taking on G2 Esports. Some pretty big games on the day. Anything else that you're looking forward to, Azael?
I'm definitely looking forward to CLG, and this should be pretty routine for them. They had a big win against G2. I'd love to see them clean up against ANX and move to 2-0 in the groups.
Well, here in San Francisco, the cheers for North America have been loud. I'm sure we hear them screaming some more. We'll be back tomorrow with more for another day of games tomorrow, 4 p.m. Pacific time. That's 1 a.m. for those of you observing in Central European summertime. We're going to take a closer look at the day 2 in just a moment. So if you're watching us in client, hit us up on YouTube. And the full version is bringing it back. We touched on a lot of the results, a lot of the games.
Yeah.
I want to go straight to one that stood out to me. SK Telecom versus Cloud9. Everybody was expecting SKT to be bad, and they weren't. Why were they not bad, Azael?
I don't know, man. I mean, it's hard to even read too much into this game as far as their performance. They look incredibly dominant, but I thought C9 was disrespectful. These guys are the defending world champions. You draft yourself a losing lane for Jensen, who talked about wanting to smash Faker. Not only did he not smash Faker, he got absolutely obliterated. He made mistakes, and Faker made him pay big time.
Yeah, they tried to play coy in the pick ban phase, actually, because I think they wanted Bengi to only be able to go towards the Elise early as a first pick and secure themselves Syndra. But what happens? Faker just takes away the Syndra. They've already banned out the counter pick in that Vladimir, and then Faker just takes over the game. And the kicker? Cloud9 then don't even take the Elise away. I mean, that was just so weird to me.
Yeah, especially the Nidalee ban didn't really make any sense to me either when Bengi, I think, has 0 games played on this champion. So there was a lot of questions to be answered for C9 after
I've got a follow-up question because, you know, we got the questions about C9's draft, C9's play.
Yeah.
Syndra first pick was pivotal multiple times throughout the day, and it's something that you know, backstage, a lot of casters were getting quite heated about because of how powerful that pick is in lane.
Yeah, and it's about getting the shove and the priority in that mid lane whilst having legitimate kill threat. As soon as you disappear into Fog of War on this champion, the 1v1 kill threat is just insane. You get a good jungler on top of that, as we have been seeing. The pressure is just so immense, and there's so little margin for error following that champion into Fog of War.
Yeah, the CC combo, and especially in addition with Elise, right? It's so hard. Even when you're under your turret, it's a very easy die if you hit one of those CCs, especially because Jensen wasn't playing with Cleanse.
No, absolutely not. Ended up hurting him really badly. C9 lose their first game in the group stages. I want to turn to a new team who did not lose their first game in the group stages. IMA, newcomers to the stage. They showed some resilience. They took down the LMS's first seed. Spawn, were you as surprised as I was that they actually won the game?
I am absolutely shocked that this
look
game
at that
went
goal
the way it went.
difference.
I mean,
I didn't know which way you were going to go because you were showing some faith backstage.
I certainly was showing some faith backstage, but at the end of the day, when you have to stall a game out to nearly 50 minutes long, when you're behind until the 40-minute mark, and when you draft, once again, very strangely, I mean, I've never seen a Voidless play Zac. Echo has currently fallen a little bit out of the meta as well. This was just a wacky game that Flash Wolves couldn't close out.
It was one of those games that reminded me a lot of H2K against AHQ, where it's like, all right, great, they're in the lead. Now what do we do? And it just feels like a couple of these teams are really struggling as to the next steps to how they close these games out, right? Flash Wolves gets ahead, and they didn't know exactly where they're supposed to go next.
Yeah, and a lot of that domestically comes from Casa. He's a big X-Factor player for this team. That's why I rate him so highly in my top 20, but he's not having a good tournament so far. It's only 2 games, but when you give away advantages the way he was, and when you're getting out-jungled by a rookie to the stage in a Voidless, that's not a good sign for your team.
No, definitely not the case. We saw the Alistar support coming out again. I think Alistar support's going to become more of a debate/discussion.
Yeah.
Road, it was his birthday. He managed to pick up a win today. But he ain't no Mata, at least in terms of performance. Is that a little unfair?
Is anybody Mata? I mean, I don't think it's unfair. When you look at the outstanding performance he had against TSM, Mata basically put the team on his back, and he was making play after play after play. And while I don't think this champion is a permaban for against all teams, I think against the incredible players, kind of similar to Lee Sin, when you have an amazing playmaker on this champion like Mata, you cannot give it to them.
Yeah, I completely agree. I also think you have to look at the context in which the champion's picked. Yeah. Mata was pretty much solo initiate for his team and was going off, whereas you got a Zac flying in if you're IMA this time around. All Road nearly really had to do was, I mean, keep people off the backline and follow up with some CC. So different context playing the champion, but definitely ain't no Mata in my opinion.
All right, ain't no Mata, but Mata did get himself another win today. Royal never give up. The only team to have a 2-0 record. They made easy work of Europe's Splyce. Probably the most dominant win that I think we've seen in the first 2 days of competition. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, 100%. That's a fair statement. I think it's the first time we've really seen an individual like go absolutely insane in the way that Uzi did. I mean, we saw Faker's game, but he was really teaming up with the rest of his team. Uzi in this game was shifting forward, had doubled the gold by the end of the game of his opponent in Kobe. And that was the first time you've really seen like one of those huge individual like mismatches on the world stage. And honestly, it's what we feared for Splyce, but what we expected out of RNG against people that can't stand up. They're like the bullies of this group.
It's honestly incredible to have that dominant of a 2v2 performance because they were smashing even in the 2v2 without jungle interference. And this is something in this day and age, people have gotten so good at not losing even if they're not winning, you know, they just play safely, they give up a bit of CS, right? It's one of those things where you can generally keep it close, but to have someone double your gold is just disgusting. It was one of the most dominant performances I've ever seen.
Yeah, but one person you do have to kind of feel a little bit bad for right now is Wonder up in the top lane. You can see he's trying his absolute heart out. Once again, going up against Looper. This guy's all class one more time. Wonder's going with him the entirety of the laning phase. If Splyce turn this tournament around, start playing that upset role like we hope they will, it's going to be around their top laner. He is a very good young player.
Though. It's so hard.
He was struggling on Kled, though.
I don't know if they can. I mean, look, the Kled one was a loss for me because he was the primary initiator and didn't seem to be comfortable in the role. Guys who were comfortable today, and the current pride and joy of Europe is H2K.
Yeah.
Honestly, they outclassed INTZ. They had a phenomenal laning phase. They had CS at every stages of the game, and really, they just didn't seem challenged at all by the Brazilians.
For me, this was really a disappointing game from INTZ. After yesterday, how proactive they were, how aggressive they were. And my disappointment honestly started in the draft when you have someone like Yang who showed how he can be extremely lane dominant, works well in combination with Revolta. Why are you not drafting something that has good gank assist, that has the potential to split push and snowball? So I was kind of disappointed that they went for this pick. They were just pretty much happy to lose all lanes and farm until they lost. They just didn't try anything.
Yeah, and the one strategy they did have is, you know, Caitlyn has this famous mid-game power trough. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and get 2 items on our Orianna, get there at a relatively untouched pace, and then win big team fights. However, the mis-execution on those team fights means that I no longer have faith in that composition. If this team doesn't win early, the tournament gets a heck of a lot more difficult because in the team fights, they just didn't do anything.
No.
Yeah, absolutely outclassed. So H2K get a win on the board. We did not see G2 Esports taking part today because they will be playing tomorrow on stage against the Rocks Tigers, champions of LCK. Now, Rocks, they didn't necessarily look super strong, but they were not tested, right? They were not focusing. You can expect them to be full try-hard tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that if any team is going to smile back at a team like Albus Nox, it will be Rocks. I mean, that you can see that they're enjoying that early game a little bit. I do not think that is going to be the case against G2. That's all business for the Rocks Tigers. And with how G2 played against CLG and the poor decision-making, particularly out of their bottom lane, freezing waves when they shouldn't be, sticking around for turrets, that's actually what Rocks just punish day in, day out in the LCK.
Yeah, Rocks are incredibly adept at punishing any sort of macro mistakes like that. They're one of the very best teams in the world at doing it, and you have to think it's even hard to find too many individual matchups that are going to go the way of G2.
Talking about individual matchups, talking about things that are going to go the way of one team or the other. Flash Wolves or Cloud9, immediately following later in the day. Both of these teams looking to take control of second in their group. Azael, will Cloud9 decide to play League of Legends tomorrow?
I think they will. And this is something where Cloud9 has the propensity to kind of get in their own heads and have some bad games. But I will say, to their credit, in the NALCS and even in the playoffs, they're very good at bouncing back from those games. They recognize their mistakes. They're not the kind of team to get too much in their own head and just get stuck on that. So I think we're going to see a bounce back performance, especially from Jensen. He has a lot to prove here at Worlds.
That's what I was going to say. I think Jensen is a proud player, but I think in the best way possible. He's not going to have liked losing that 1v1 in the fashion he did, and he's going to look to make a statement game here. Hopefully he can step up and have a great performance.
All right, 1 or 2 very quick questions just before we move on. I'm just going to ask about LMS. Today, they did not look great, shaky around the edges. Do you think they have what it takes to bounce back, Spawn?
Yeah, I definitely think they do. I think Flash Wolves are a whole different kettle of fish. Their macro looks a little bit sloppy right now, so I think they have more to work on. AHQ, honestly, went into that game against EDG with a huge complex, playing a big brother team, and looked very good in my opinion. One team fight could have swayed that game. Their decision-making was quite good, so more hope for AHQ maybe than Flash Wolves, but I think both teams in an okay spot.
Individually, I was actually really impressed with Ichawi as well. He more than held out. He was doing very, very well in lane and in team fighting. Just really as a whole, they looked pretty strong, but unfortunately some bad decisions late game.
All right, bad decisions, they can be rectified. We'll find out whether or not LMS actually do. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it from us here in San Francisco. Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of Worlds Tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow as the fight for the Summers Cup continues.
The Dragon low, might get the steal as well. Maple dives in, he wants to fight.